Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I know so many of you have been waiting for this update, and finally, the news is here. The Social Security Administration has officially announced a raise in benefits, and people all over the country are asking the same question: what does this mean for me? For millions of seniors, for those on SSI, for people with disabilities relying on SSDI, and even for veterans, this update is personal. It's not just another headline or another number being thrown around in the news. It's about whether you'll have enough money to pay the bills, to buy groceries, to fill your prescriptions, and to hold on to a little bit of peace of mind in a world where everything feels like it just keeps getting more expensive. Now let's talk about what exactly was announced. The Social Security Administration has confirmed that benefits are going up starting in January. For the average retiree, the raise will mean about $140 more each month. Over the course of a year, that adds up to nearly $1,700 extra. For some people who receive higher benefits now, the increase could be larger in dollar terms, while for those on the lower end, it might be less. But the important thing is that everyone in the program, whether you're retired, disabled, or receiving survivor benefits, is going to see a bump. At first glance, $140 a month might not sound like a life-changing amount. And if you compare it to the way inflation has pushed up prices, it might even seem small. But when you live on a fixed income, every dollar counts. For someone who has to choose between filling a prescription and paying the electric bill, that extra money can make a real difference. It might mean being able to keep the heat on in the winter. It might mean not having to cut pills in half just to make them last longer. It might mean a little less stress at the grocery store when you're watching the total climb higher and higher at the checkout. I know some of you remember the last couple of years. In 2023, the cost of living adjustment was one of the largest in history, nearly 9%. That was because inflation was out of control, prices were spiking everywhere, and the government had to respond. Last year, the increase was around 3%. This year's adjustment falls somewhere in between. It shows that while inflation isn't as wild as it was a couple of years ago, it's still very much a reality. And this raise is the government's way of saying, we see that, and we're going to try to help you keep up. Think about how many people this impacts. More than 70 million Americans receive some form of Social Security benefits. That's retirees who've worked hard their whole lives and paid into the system. That's people living with disabilities who rely on SSDI because they can't work full-time jobs. That's widows and survivors who count on this check to keep them afloat after losing a loved one. That's veterans who served their country and are now relying on these payments. When you put all of that together, it's not just a statistic, it's the fabric of our society. And when 70 million people are about to see a change in their income, that's a big deal. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, that sounds nice, but is it enough? And that's a fair question, because the truth is, costs have been rising faster than these checks can keep up with. Rent has gone up, food prices have gone up, utility bills keep climbing. Healthcare costs never seem to stop. And while this raise helps, it doesn't erase those challenges. Seniors will still feel squeezed. Families on SSI will still struggle. People on disability will still find themselves making hard choices. But the raise does give a little breathing room, and in times like these, even a little relief can matter. For example, imagine someone on SSI who currently gets about $1,200 per month. With this raise, their check will increase to about $1,260. That extra $60 might cover a week's worth of groceries. It might pay for a couple of prescriptions. It might cover part of a utility bill. It might not solve every problem, but it eases the pressure. And sometimes, easing the pressure, even just a little, is what keeps people going. The other thing people always want to know is timing. So let's be clear. These new amounts will take effect in January. That means the first checks of the new year will reflect the raise. Depending on your specific payment schedule, you might notice it a little earlier or a little later in the month, but January is when it begins. So as you think about your budget for the new year, plan on that extra money being there.
This is part of what's known as the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, and it's an important part of the Social Security system. Without it, people on fixed incomes would quickly fall behind. Inflation eats away at the value of money, and if benefits stayed flat year after year, seniors would be in deep trouble. COLA is designed to make sure that doesn't happen, at least not completely. It's not perfect.
Sometimes the formula doesn't capture the full extent of rising costs, especially for healthcare, which tends to hit older Americans the hardest. But it's better than nothing, and it shows that the system is at least trying to adapt. It's also important to remember why Social Security exists in the first place. Decades ago, when this program was created, the goal was simple: to make sure older Americans didn't have to face poverty after a lifetime of work. Over time, the program expanded to include people with disabilities and survivors. But the principle remains the same. It's about security, dignity, and keeping a promise to the American people. Every year, when these adjustments are announced, it's not just about numbers. It's about whether that promise is being kept. I've spoken to people who say Social Security is the only reason they're able to keep a roof over their heads. Others tell me they depend on it to buy food. For many, it's their only source of income. When you think about it like that, even a modest raise becomes more than just money. It becomes a symbol of respect for the contributions people have made throughout their lives. It becomes a way of saying, you matter, and we're not going to leave you behind. Now, let's also talk about what could happen in the future. Economists are already looking at trends for the next few years. Inflation might slow down further, or it could pick up again. If it does, that will affect the size of future COLA increases. Some lawmakers have been pushing for bigger changes to the system, like adjusting the formula to better reflect the costs seniors actually face, or even providing one-time bonus checks to give people extra relief. Whether any of those proposals move forward remains to be seen. But for now, the raise that's been announced is real, and it's going to make its way into people's pockets starting in January. So here's the bottom line. Social Security benefits are going up. The average retiree will see about $140 more each month. That means more than $1,700 over the course of a year. It's not enough to erase all the struggles people face, but it's something. And for millions of Americans, that something will make life just a little bit easier. If you're watching this and you or someone you love is on Social Security, remember that this raise is automatic. You don't have to apply for it. You don't have to fill out any forms. It will simply show up in your check starting in January. That's the good news. It's guaranteed. And finally, let me just say this. If you're one of the millions of people relying on Social Security, know that you're not alone. There are millions of others in the same position, facing the same challenges, hoping for the same relief. This raise is a recognition of your struggles, and while it may not solve everything, it is a step forward. Hold on to that hope, hold on to that dignity, and know that your voice matters. So stay tuned, stay informed, and take care of yourselves. Because this is more than just a financial update. It's about people, about families, about communities, and about making sure that no one is left behind. And as we move into the new year, this raise will be there to help you, even if just a little along the way.